you're Mike Clark, and you're a Lego designer.
I'm a Lego designer on Instagram as Brickle Jar. I've also got a website, and I've been making Lego for years. And so the kind of stuff I make is just anything that comes into my head, really, anything that I've got the parts for. Really looking forward to being on here and talking about Lego.
Have you always been interested in Lego?
I love doing, messing around with it as a toy, but in terms of like unlocking the real creative power of the brick was going on YouTube. There was such a thing called brick films that sort of inspired me to get a bit more creative with Lego and start understanding it as an art medium and not just a toy. I can pinpoint the moment where I thought, hang on, this thing is so much more than I'm seeing it as. And you realise, hang on, I can take the bits from the lion and the dinosaur, and I can make something really weird and cool, and then go, it's like a light bulb goes off in your head, It's one of those moments.
What was your first bespoke creation?
I don't know. I think it was like, as far as bespoke creations that I was happy with, I was playing this game at the time. It was one of the Crash Bandicoot games. And I remember making this, and I made it from a bunch of like dinosaur parts because it had the right colors. It had gray and dark red. And
did you know from the onset exactly how you wanted it to be, or is it something that evolved?
Back then, everything was trial and error. Everything was tinker around with a certain layering of plates and bricks and until it works and until it's structurally sound. I can look back at something that I made when I was 9, and that would have taken hours upon hours of just like not quite knowing the best way to sort of like make this joint or make this elbow. But I can do the same thing now, and it's very different. But that's part of the joy. That's really the fun in it. Really, like I think the moment when I decide that a creation is finished is actually the saddest point, because I'm going, oh, that's the fun part. And the endless indecisiveness of perfection is that's the good bit, I think.
And do you have a particular genre, or is it eclectic? Do you look at many things to give you ideas?
It's really eclectic. There'll be times when I know that I want to do a replica of something. There really is no limit to what I'm inspired by in terms of being inspired by the kind of Lego stuff that others made. It was the Flickr community that helped me to sort of like realize inspiration can come from so many different places. If anyone wants to get into design, I highly recommend checking this guy out. He's on Instagram, and he's called Space Goose, all one word. And what he does is he sort of takes inanimate household objects like a tin opener, and he reimagines it as a spaceship. So he thinks like, oh, okay, so maybe the top and bottom handles are like big nacelles, like big sort of engines, and then the back is some sort of like propulsion system, and then in the middle there's like a hangar bay where tiny ships come in. It's just gorgeous, and he'll always do like the side by side comparison of the inanimate object versus the result of that inspiration. I think that's great.
On your portfolio, am I right in thinking there's a Millennium Falcon that's like a burger or something?
That is correct. A while back, there was a Lego community who share your mocks there. For those who don't know, mock stands for My Own Creation. And there was a mock contest on this website called Lego Rebrick. So there was a contest called Freighter Wars. The challenge was to build, not the Millennium Falcon itself, be as wacky as you want, be as imaginative with this very basic ship design, which is kind of just a pancake with two kind of like forward prongs sticking out of it. I was one of the winners, and my idea was actually taken from, at the time I was working at Asda, and one of the guys stacking the shelves was like, oh yeah, but you know how George Lucas came up with the idea for a Falcon, right? He said I want a spaceship that looks like a burger with a bite taken out of it, and the cockpit should be like a stuffed olive. So I thought, oh, why don't I just do that? So I did that, took some photos of it, and I won the massive one of the bonus prizes, which was the huge Millennium Falcon that was coming out at the time. And like it's so big I can't fit it in my flat anymore. About 7,500 pieces.
Looking at your portfolio, the diversity of the ideas, the design, the range, and all of it looks incredible. You got very small dinosaur eggs through to futuristic cities that your opening shot in your portfolio is that something that took long to build?
That's probably the longest project I've had throughout my entire life. That came about as a result of I ought to cite the inspiration because he's a great builder too. On Instagram, if you just search Tim Goddard, I think Tim Goddard 928. I went to a convention in Reading. A lot of people build things to minifigure scale, the little figures which are about sort of a couple inches high. His was this trophy figure scale. These little figures are half the size, like half the height of your average Lego minifigure. And he built this Clone Wars diorama, sort of from the Clone Wars Star Wars spin-off series, even with like little walkers and little like chicken walkers and the amount of detail they would still manage to cram in at that scale was very impressive. And I thought, oh, I want to try this scale now. So I went home about a month later, and that was when the pandemic hit, right? So I thought, oh god, all the time in the world to build this amazing Lego thing. So I started with the sort of shape of the monorail because I knew that I wanted that to sort of like outline the city, sort of be on the outskirts. So I was messing around, like figuring out what sort of pieces to use. I kept working on that for about a year or so. I remember running into a problem with the monorail. I want to have a train that is small enough to sort of be in the scale of this trophy figure kind of scaled city, but there's no Lego motors that are that small. So I used a bike chain, and that didn't work. It failed completely. It's very hard to know whether or not something's going to work just by sort of looking at it. There's so much trial and error involved. The solution was to actually make it more like a proper bike chain that you would get on a bike and have gaps in it. But it still runs into problems. It would run for about 2 minutes and then get camera shy. It's received a lot of great feedback at shows, and there I feel like you're stepping out of the sort of comfort zone of social media, and the sort of praise and love and feedback and inspiration that you give to children and adults alike is a lot more real than just a post on Instagram, to be honest with you, especially when you have like some very talented builders come up to you and sort of one of my favorite designers in my head when I was designing the shape of these kind of ships and so I took it to the show, and lo and behold, that designer was sitting opposite me, and so he came over and he said, "Oh, I really like the designer," and I was like, "Yes, that was you. You are solely responsible for me creating this kind of design, really."
Do you recycle the bricks or do you keep them?
As of the last 2 years, I think there's actually no point in me recycling the bricks because more so for the fact that it just takes too long. Um, Everything I destroy, I sort of would like to set aside time to actually sort the parts back into my collection, and that's probably one of the major caveats of this hobby. I think is sorting. Some people love it, some people hate it. People sort in different ways. A lot sort just by one color, but I tend to sort by category. And there would definitely be a time where like I would only leave something built for a photography session, and then if some friends come over, I can show it. One of my plans with the city that I just described to you is that eventually it would be nice to destroy, but I can create a story out of that. So phase 2 of this story that I've created for this city is an alien invasion. So I could begin destroying some of the skyscrapers that I look at and definitely go, oh yeah, I might need these parts later, but I can make it look like an alien's destroyed them, and then have various defense forces trying to fight the aliens off. So you can make some fun out of it, I think.
Where do you actually build this? Do you have a workshop?
I sort of have a countertop and 6 massive drawers that I bought from Homebase of parts, and then I just but I tend to build on the desk, so I'll sort of like shimmy between grabbing all the parts and then moving around. But recently I was lucky enough to be contacted by a guy called Jason, who's in charge of a company called Playwell Bricks. As of any commissions that come through Playwell Bricks, I'll probably be designing in the digital world. Digital world is great for when your desk is cluttered, or when you don't actually have that much space, or when you're looking to build something massive. I think the only thing that stopped me from using Bricklink Studio for the city was that I knew that there was so much of it that was going to move. I thought it would just be pointless to try and figure out a moving thing in a digital world where there's no physics engine.
Has the city got a name?
Yes, it is called Sinewave City, and I can give you some of its backstory. So it's sort of in a world where Spotify puts chips in your brains so that you can listen to music while you dream, and then you wake up going, "Hey, I need to buy the new Justin Bieber album."
Yeah.
It's one of those horrible dystopias um, that everyone thinks is great on the outside, but in actuality, if you try to live here for a week, you're going to hate it.
Is that something you know from the get go? I want this to have this particular color scheme and this kind of feel. I mean, have you seen that film Metropolis? You know, that very old fashioned
Fritz
film.
Lang,
It
uh,
looks kind of
so,
reminiscent of that. I mean,
someone did, but that's black and white though, so that's
just
very
the
interesting.
architecture, the kind of
The
curves,
architecture,
the
yeah.
lines on the cityscape. It kind of
hmm
reminds me of that kind of feel.
Do you know what? When I posted these photos on social media, um, there was one of my friends who said, "Oh, I love this. It's very Fritz Lang, Metropolis." And I said, "Oh, I need to watch that. It's been on my list for ages, and I still haven't watched it." But in terms of the colors, yeah, I watched Tron once, and I thought, I love this neon blue. And it did it was coincidental that I did happen to have a lot of it in my collection anyway. Um, and some of the shapes actually were inspired by playing games like Metroid. And in turn, a lot of the architecture in sort of the 3D Metroid games, Metroid Prime, is sort of inspired by Giga. So yeah, there's all sorts of like very ergonomic alien sort of shapes. I mean, especially this sort of central tower here you've got, and actually there's one or two. So this sort of tower here looks like a fishbone. I'm trying to think if I can zoom in. Oh, I can actually. Yeah, there we go. That I wasn't expecting the bricks to do that, but uh, like I was saying earlier, Lego has a tolerance and a sort of give to it. Um, and what happened here with the sort of curve was that it was building up and up and up, and it just kind of like it sort of collapsed in on itself in its own weight. So I thought, why don't I play to that weakness and create this sort of shit? And I was sort of inspired by the Gherkin building in London, actually, like the kind of shape that forms as it goes up. So, and there's even one building I think which looks a bit like sort of the Seattle Space Needle as well. I love the architecture of that.
If we just look at some of the other creations in your portfolio,
The dragons, they were a fun one because I didn't really use any reference material as such, which is why I think the limbs were the hardest part. Like the head and the wings were not too sort of challenging, but when it came to doing like dragon limbs, there's when I was looking at reference material, everyone loves to paint dragons with just like the most amazing heads and jaws and necks, and then all their limbs are like curled up,
yeah.
and they're like sitting like a cat. I'm like, well, this doesn't help me. I need to know what their limbs look like. So that was a really difficult part. Um, but I
So
actually, they were in a shop in Glastonbury somewhere. My partner at the time had some good connections with sort of like very nice secondhand shops around Glastonbury, and this one sold, which is really nice. It's now in a loving home somewhere. Um, the other one is still there, I think, actually. Um,
so someone purchased this, someone bought this from you.
yeah, so I think I earned a commission from it. So, or rather, the shop that sold it, I earned a percentage of that. So, but one of the commissions I took on board was the Titanic. And I found that through an event. It was very random. Like none of the stuff I displayed at this event for sale was uh, at all related to the Titanic. But this family just came up and they said, "Oh, my grandson or my son loves the Titanic. Can you make like a scale model?" And I thought I'd put the iceberg in as well. Um, and so I wanted to make it bigger, but their budget would not allow me to make it any bigger, really. So I had to be realistic. I think the one thing that I hate about this build, actually, I'll be honest, is I did not spend enough time getting proper printed plaques
Mm.
or the windows. The windows just look horrid. So
So
it's definitely something I'd go back and change if I had the chance to.
so they're stickers. That's what you put on.
But yeah,
Portholes.
they're no, they're not even stickers. They're honestly they're just Sharpie.
Okay, you read them on.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if I had the chance, I would print it properly. or maybe leave them out entirely, because outside of that, it's still recognizable.
I
So yeah.
I have to say the iceberg is one of the best parts of it. To think you weren't sure whether to include it, but I mean, it's kind of synonymous. The two go hand in hand, and the Titanic and the iceberg and
Because
the
you can now buy the Titanic, there's a Lego kit, and it costs something like 600 quid, and it doesn't fit in anyone's house. So what's the even point? It's so big. But that doesn't come with an iceberg.
no.
You have to make that yourself. I think perhaps it would be too sensitive for descendants of people who I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
The way you've got the detail in some of these models, it looks incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I think like there are some Lego parts that you might discover, and you just go, hang on, this was made for this moment. That how have I not? And oftentimes when I'm designing something, I will take just one piece and sort of use that as the built, like the foundation. And normally when I use that piece as the foundation, it sort of sets the scale. So I think about like an eye on this magnemite, for example, and I think, okay, that's how big I want that to be, and then just build off around that, and then everything else, hopefully, sort of fits in place. These two purple elements at the end, they're actually spaceship cockpits that I've just sort of sandwiched together to create this sort of energy compartment of this gun. And it comes from this set that no one else wanted, so it was heavily discounted. It was sort of like 50% off, and it was like this little bus from the Lego Movie 2, and it just has the most amazing parts in it,
Yeah.
and in incredible colors. So I thought, well, I'm getting some of them, and
So in terms of how you source parts, do you buy sets to cannibalize the bits for creations, or how does it work?
yeah, a lot of the time. I mean, sometimes I'll buy a set if I know that it's good value. I won't even bother building the thing in the instructions, because I know that whatever I'm going to build is going to be more enjoyable. And that's not a disservice to the design of the thing. I mean, I'm actually a bit annoyed at the moment because of one of my builds that I ideally I wouldn't want to destroy it without making instructions, because I know that it's going to be something that other people would love to try themselves. There might be a better photo of it, but let's do that one for now.
So
Um,
do you
so
make
that
the instructions? Sorry, Mike. You actually make instructions so people can follow your process and build the thing
I have done, yeah.
themselves.
One or two times I've done instructions. I don't think I've got any at the moment that are actually public, unfortunately. Maybe that will be something that comes in the future. But this is something that I want to make instructions for that I haven't had the time to do so. And it's created from a Porsche racing car kit, a Technic Porsche. And the problem here is I do actually really like that model of car, but I can't build it yet because I don't want to take this apart without not knowing how to build it again. Because it's a great little Halloween decoration.
It's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah.
So is that sometimes you're a bit wary about how being able to duplicate it, to replicate it, because once you've taken it apart, you'll never quite get it back to how it looked.
Yeah,
pre-
yeah, because there's lots of stuff that, say, like with the city, for example, there's lots of modules that move and do things,
Mm.
and over time, like I'll need to go back into the design and into the engineering to fix something, and it becomes harder the longer the time that you spent outside of doing that engineering, because you're going back and you go, hang on, how did this work? How did I create this? Because it was just so long ago. Um, so yeah, that's a challenge, I would say. But hopefully, I will get to build the actual car that is meant to be built from all these parts. So yeah,
From talking to yourself and other people in the community, it does seem that there's so much more that's possible from using Lego that is commercially available from Lego. It's like you look at these ideas and, like you say, Lego, the company, are kind of have to strike this balance between what's functional and playable and what is stylish, and it's constantly trading off what is possible for the sake of children who predominantly play with it, or the builders themselves. And talking to builders like yourself, they've come up with so many ideas. It's almost like you could set up your own business. I know there are companies out there, but the kind of breadth that the models that you can create from Lego, it's just limitless. And there's so much more that people would. I imagine a lot of these would be very desirable. Like you say, the skull would be brilliant on Halloween. It just looks incredible in anyone's lounge or house. Just having something like that, it's a real talking piece.
Hmm. There's so much to talk about with it, and I think one of the most powerful communities in terms of what you mentioned, the kind of stuff that Lego won't have the faculty or the sort of design philosophy to really produce themselves. And I think one of the bigger things is licensing, but one of the biggest Lego's ethos is they don't make military sets, or at least if they have done, they've been recalled. The biggest sort of blunder in most recent years was Lego created a Technic model of the Bell Boeing V-22 Osprey, which got recalled about a month after it started hitting shelves. So it now goes on eBay for something like nearly $1,000, when the retail price was only meant to be 200. And it's a fully functional tilt-rotor VTOL aircraft, and because it comes in a military version, Lego thought we will need to recall it. So only a small handful of people have their hands on that set, but in turn, there is a huge community of Lego builders who create model aircraft, everything from World War One to modern day, to sort of like Royal Air Force, Navy, Russian aircraft, and it's incredible. And there is a real meticulous sort of passion that comes through in that, and I think maybe that passion is doubled because it feels very rebellious to really sort of tap into something that Lego would never do, and also in engineering ways that they might not do as well. Some of the most, it's a great designer, I think based in Southampton actually, where I'm from, called Ralph Savelsberg, and he's well known for creating military vehicles. But that's also one of the great things about when people bring their ideas to the community, they also bring their style. I think one thing I love about Lego is when you can recognize, oh, that's a so-and-so build from just like their building style. And one of the differentiators is I like building everything smooth. I like smooth surfaces. I like to cover up my studs, the knobs that you see.
Yeah.
Other people, they leave them exposed, and it's sort of a retro feeling when you have this gorgeous aircraft, but it's all studdy, it's all knobbly. But then that's that person, and it's everyone's offering a part of their brain in that aspect, which is just incredible, really.
It's been great talking to you. Your passion and your knowledge really comes across with the Lego community. Everyone's so positive and inclusive.
Well, that's definitely one of the things I want to say as well. Don't feel like you don't have the skills to take part in this community, because it really is welcoming of all skill sets. If you want to learn, you can. If you're not interested in learning and you just want to share silly things, then that's there for you as well. We have in the London AFOL community, we have all types of builders, and that's what really makes it special.
If people want to contact you,
I'm on Instagram mostly, and that is at Bricklejar. So BRICKLEJAR, little pun. On the website there is a contact link. So if you are interested in having something bespoke made out of Lego, feel free.
Thanks, Mike.
It's been fantastic. Thank you, Tony.